Hi there, and welcome to my channel. The always work in progress, evolving channel, as I'm now beginning to call it, as we're still a new channel and we're still not sure exactly all the directions we're going to take. One of the directions I definitely want to take is to be able to have conversations with people just like you and me, everyday people, not doesn't have to be a teacher or somebody that's written books. No, just everyday people, those of us that are, courageously navigating through this life right now. And the reason I'm putting this out there is because I believe that let me just say why I think this is important. I think by sharing our stories, of our life's journey, challenges, successes, failures, whatever it is, that we can help one another that way. And during this time that we're going through of this evolutionary process, I think it's more important than ever that we're able to share with one another. And also, we'll find out that we're much more alike than different. At least that's my take on this. So if this idea of having a conversation with me, we'd put it on, we'd have it on Zoom and then I'd put it on the channel, appeals to you, then my contact information is right below this video. So click on that and let's see where we can go from there. Okay. Today I want to talk about something I always talk about on some level, which is about self-care or self-love, or as I always say at the end of a video, about being kind to ourselves. That's such a mystery for so many of us in terms of how to really be with self-love, self-care. It's confusing. It's like, doesn't necessarily seem right sometimes. It can seem selfish. It can seem, to me, just completely kind of a mystery, I would say. But I believe in it. I believe it's absolutely true. But it's, for me, a mystery. How do I do that? Well, I saw a post yesterday, and I'll explain the post in a moment, that really helped me understand, in reading it, that this was what compassion for oneself, self-kindness was. So let me give you a little backstory here. In another video, I don't know, a day or so ago, I talked about where a friend of ours was, has since now passed, and she was in hospice, and then her daughter, her oldest daughter, was diagnosed with cancer and was going through some chemo and having major adverse reactions with this chemo, and subsequently passed away 7 days before her mother. Now the middle child, because there were 3 children, so the middle child, a girl, was the one that has been more of the caretaker or the bringing together, I don't know quite how to describe it, of this family, because they had a very challenging relationship. Both these girls, the woman that's the middle child and the one that passed away, were molested by their biological father. And this caused tremendous problems, toxic relationship between the sisters. I mean, it's all a psychological situation. And so they suffered through that, and in so many ways. I mean, drug abuse and all the stuff that goes with it. But they came out of this finally through lots of therapy and help, at least the middle child, the one that's been kind of the caretaker, who really went on a journey of figuring it out. She also was on a journey of drug abuse and got through that, and they've just had an amazing story. So their relationship, the 3 of them, and the 3rd child is a boy, a brother, who wasn't really involved in what they had been involved with. Subsequently, the mother did remarry. Actually, their biological father died when they were in their teens. So it's not, why I'm telling you this is because they've not had an easy journey by any means in this. I've watched them through the years, and this middle child has written a couple books regarding it, plus I knew their mom very well. So it's not been easy. It's been a tough situation. However, this middle child who became the caretaker of her mom in the last many months, but evidently, I think in the last almost year, she's kind of been the one that's worked with and tried to help, well, not tried, actually helped her mom and her sister through all this challenging time. And it's taken its toll on her. Now, it's only less than a week, only a few days ago did her mom transition, passed over, and her sister 7 days prior to that. So, two relationships like that happening in such a way have been overwhelming, to say the least. And through all this process of them being ill and her being really the one kind of taking on the job, we could say, or taking on the way to help them, and this was her choice. Her body, her emotions, all of this, of course, have taken a big hit. And so when she posted, and she's an incredible writer, so it gets right to the, at least for me, to the heart of what she's saying. I just feel it on such a level deep within. And so through all this, her body's taken a hit, meaning she's, not been, well, she's had sleep deprivation, major sleep deprivation, no appetite, and, just basically worn out, exhausted, dehydration, all of the things that go along where you go through such an emotional roller coaster that she's been on. And so now, almost a year later, I think it is, maybe 8-9 months later, she's feeling the effects. But she also has learned through her own work on herself about self-care and about being kind to herself. So what she was posting today just struck me. Oh my God, this is what it is to be compassionate to yourself, compassionate, kind to yourself. Because in her writing, she explained, without at all being a victim, without needing to over-explain what she was doing now to take care of herself, without looking for sympathy. None of that was there, not to over-explain, not to look for sympathy, not to be a victim, none of that. It was clearly such a clear, open-hearted way of seeing that this compassion, this self-care was definitely taking effect in her. This is through writing. It wasn't through her speaking on a video, but it got so clear to me. It just hit me in my solar plexus. It hit me like, oh wow, this is what this looks like, or this is what this feels like when you can truly have self-care without guilt, without like I said, I think a lot of us, when we're taking time for our own needs or our own self, we want to over-explain because so people could maybe better understand. At least that's been my thing. And then we have guilt about taking that time to ourselves or caring for ourselves in that way. Or we're playing the victim role, or, we're looking for attention that way, or we're looking for sympathy. Looking for something. She was not looking for anything other than to express where she was at and thank people for their prayers and their good vibes being sent to her during this time, and just a tremendous amount of gratitude is what was really going on. So again, that just really went through me like, whoa, this is what it looks like. So the only thing I can do right now is try to explain what this felt like, but I think what I'm getting, and that's what I want to share. is I think that many of us probably grew up feeling that it was selfish to care for ourselves. That was kind of that was clearly, at least let me speak for myself, that was clearly the message in my family. So I'd mentioned before in videos about I had a very abusive mother, emotionally abusive to me. I was her chosen one to be abusive for. And within the family, the immediate family, there was this situation that would always go on where as I moved out of the house at 18, and that was finally when I could stop speaking to my mother or having a relationship with her. And it was really for my own best interest because it was so destroying to me to have this relationship. But the family, meaning who was the family? My grandmother and my aunt. My aunt, who I was extremely close with, and because she was only 8 years older than I, so it was more like a sister relationship. And then my grandmother I was extremely close with, and this was my mother's mother and my mother's sister. Strange, but that's how it was. When I would stop speaking to my mother would start to really get to my grandmother and my aunt in such a way, because my mother was very aggressive and assertive in her behavior and her energy, that put them in a spot of she's telling them that they need to get me to have a relationship again with my mother, to talk to my mother. So here was the game. You know, I stopped talking to my mother goes to my aunt, my grandmother, and makes them miserable and is like persistent, doesn't let loose of this idea, and is consistently on their back to talk to me and talk me into having this relationship. So it became this situation where finally my grandmother and my aunt would, I guess I'm going to say, threaten me, that if I didn't speak to my mother, then they couldn't speak to me because it was really upsetting my grandmother's health and just devastating for both of them, my aunt and my grandma. So this was the game that went on for quite a few years. And the only time that it was okay for me not to talk to my mother, meaning not to be selfish, was when I got pregnant with my first child, and from my mother's constant hassling me or her abusive relationship with me, my OBGYN realized that this emotion I was going through by having a relationship with my mother actually was looking like it could cause me to lose the child. And so in that, he actually wrote me a prescription saying that I was going to have a miscarriage if I continue, or there was a good chance, because I was so emotionally distraught by having a relationship with my mother and being pregnant, that there was definitely a clear chance that I could have the miscarriage if I had to continue to talk to my mother. So therefore he wrote a prescription for me to give to my family that said until this pregnancy was completed, I really could not have a relationship with my mother because, again, it was causing a problem. At that time, my grandmother and my aunt totally agreed, said, okay, no problem, that's fine. So this was in my second or third month that this took place. So I had the rest of the time where I didn't have to talk to my mother and I could have a relationship with my aunt and my grandmother. But as soon as I had that child, my first daughter, that was, game over. And then everything went back to how it had been, where, this whole issue about me having the relationship with my mother or else. And so I really got trained, you could say, into believing that any self-care or self-love or kindness to myself was selfish. And, I grew up with that as a younger kid, just the way the dynamics played themselves out, that any time that I wanted to take care of me, that it was selfish because my mother had migraines and it was all about my mother. Anyway, so I think you get the picture. And many of you have probably had some type of experience that you can go back to, where perhaps you were felt like it was selfish to have kindness or self-care for oneself. And of course, this is kind of a newer idea in the last, I don't know, decade maybe, I don't know if it's been that long, maybe, of where self-care, self-love, has been more spoken about in a positive way, in fact, in a way that says we need to give ourselves that kindness. And now it's become much more of a common conversation. But because I have this programming in me, that really comes up anytime I'm trying to give myself the self-care or take care of myself. And I've talked about before being a major people pleaser. That was just part of it. Like, I don't count. So it's what other people want is what is the right thing to do. And, it isn't, but that's how I grew up. And I'm sharing this because I think this can give you a good idea maybe for yourselves to look at yourself. If you feel that you have trouble giving yourself self-care and self-love, then this is a way to start to see maybe why. And I'm just guessing that the why is often because we don't feel that we're deserving of it and we feel it's selfish, And those two emotions or attitudes or beliefs are very, very strong ones. And so that keeps us from actually getting to that place of caring for ourselves. And yet, for me, I know that if I don't have kindness for myself, it's more difficult for me to have compassion and kindness for others because I don't know how to do it, perhaps. I can feel it, and I do a lot. I'm empathic, so I can feel compassion, but there's something probably missing of it being at the level it could be. Let me put it that way. And so now, through reading this post, it's like something has clicked in me. Something has shifted, because now I'm seeing that, one, when I really try to take care of myself, I over-explain. I feel guilty, feel very guilty. I'm not in harmony with it. I'm not in alignment with it. And so, and there has to be a good enough reason, like I'm almost dead kind of reason for me to have self-care. And I see it. I can see the dynamic going on. I can feel it in my body. But yet it has been such a hard, how do I want to call it, such a difficult challenge for me. But now that I think I recognize that how this woman didn't have to, over-explain, wasn't playing a victim role, wasn't blaming others, wasn't feeling guilty, none of that. Wasn't looking for sympathy. It just was so clear that it was perfectly okay to give herself now, or it was her time for self-care. And it wasn't like she was complaining at all, no complaint. She chose and clearly gave to her mom and her sister what she felt she wanted to give them, and which was basically everything that she felt they needed to the best of her ability. Anyway, it just really struck me, and I do know from speaking to others that this is a challenge for many of us to get to this place of self-care, self-love, self-kindness, and that in today's world this is very important that we learn how to do it. So I'm letting it sink in. I can't get it out of my mind, so that's good. I'm letting it sink in. I'm really allowing that feeling of that it's selfish, all those emotions that have gone on when I've tried to do self-care. I'm really trying to let those come up so they can be released. Seeing that that's not true. That's just a belief. It's never been true. and that by holding on to that belief of being that it's selfish, or I should feel guilty, or I'm not deserving of self-care, those those feelings and emotions must be able to be shown, must come up, must be expressed in that way. I am not those emotions. They're just a part of what got buried, and emotions that got buried inside this body. And the only way that I can move through this is allowing them to come up, kind of have their say, so to speak, and then have the release. But it's by seeing them. In other words, and I always say, I see you, I hear you, you're welcome here. And then letting them have that time to show up. And it could last for hours. That feeling's it's very uncomfortable feeling, but I'm used to it, I know it. Sometimes it lasts for hours, it can last for a day. It doesn't last forever by any means. And the more I can just allow that feeling to be there without rejecting it or without resisting it, then the quicker it dissipates. And so that is a process I've used. So, but I haven't used it in this way. And so now I'm going to use it in this way, because I didn't have that insight before reading that post. Seems simple, I know. It seems like, well, yeah, duh. Well, not to me. I had to be triggered into seeing that. So I hope this makes sense. Like I always say, I hope it makes sense. I hope it helps somebody. I just know that all of us are really needing to really have this self-kindness now more than ever before, and learn how to do it, and learn to that it's not selfish, and that we do deserve it. In fact, it's extremely important as we're going through this ascension process. It's extremely important that we have self-love, self-care, self-kindness. So I'm going to work on this. I'm going to see how it goes. I'll keep you posted on that. And that's about really what I want to talk about today, because I feel it deserves its own space. Interesting, one last note on this is, so I had this insight early this morning, and I work with tarot cards, and I pick a card like once a week. And that's my card for the week, whatever it is, the message. And so I shuffle the cards, and I close my eyes, and I pick one. And I always have a little prayer that says, help me pick the card that I need to see today. And so, no surprise, the card that came up was about self-kindness, self-love. All about it. That's it. Just about being kind to oneself. And how, there's a little paragraph in there about that, which was pretty much mimicking what I just said, which was quite amazing. What a synchronicity, but I think my guides definitely played a hand in this, so I'm going to be reminded with my card, because I try to remember to look at it every day to remind me what I'm really focused on this week. And so, how does it get any better than that, right? You can't, and you can't make this stuff up. Okie doke, guys. So, in the meantime, I just want to ask you to like this video, click like if you like it, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment. I'd love for you to leave a comment. Tell me what maybe has happened for you in maybe your journey into having self-love, self-care. How's that working for you? Love to hear from you guys. And just a quick reminder that if you'd like to have a conversation with me, that my contact information is below, so click on that and we can get started in that part of this channel that I hope to see come to fruition. Alrighty, so until next time, and it'll be sooner than later. I'm trying to really post a video every other day now. So as long as I have internet and power, we're out of this stormy time, although we're still not out of the rain, it appears, but we are out of the big storms, it seems like, in California. So I hope now I can be able to consistently have videos posting every other day. I want to thank you if you're here. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for commenting if you've commented, or for also liking the video or subscribing to my channel. I really appreciate it. In the meantime, till next time, take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. Hope this helps you in doing it. So I'm going to click off. You know, I have a problem in making this little clicker work the first time. Let's see what happens today.